Welcome into today's edition of Just the Truth. Glad to have you join me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. President Joe Biden gave a 3-word response when he was asked whether he would debate former President Donald Trump prior to the election. He simply said, "Set it up," as he was passing by reporters at an event. 2 months after ending her White House bid, Nikki Haley will huddle next week with some of her top donors to talk about Republican presidential campaign and strategy. Sources close to Haley confirmed this to Fox News. We'll give you the details on that. It doesn't appear there's going to be an endorsement coming anytime soon. Also, a group of top oil executives have said they've been shocked by a very blunt fundraising request by Donald Trump in a weekend meeting at Mara Lago. A Florida sheriff publicly released Bodycam footage today from a deputy who fatally shot a black airman in his home last week, and disputed claims from the victim's family that the deputy had gone to the wrong apartment. Black Lives Matter group sues massive liberal foundation claiming egregious mismanagement of $33 million in funds. First, it was student loans, and now Bernie Sanders wants to pass new legislation that would cancel Americans' medical debt. According to the report, consumers owe billions, with many of them expressing no hope of ever paying it off. Should this be forgiven too, just like Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders wants to forgive student loans?
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
Let's start with the potential of a Joe Biden-Donald Trump debate. We're pretty certain there's going to have to be some debates this fall, right? I mean, no way that these candidates cannot debate one another. And I understand Donald Trump does not like the Presidential Debate Commission. I get that. But he's going to have to, if he keeps asking and challenging Joe Biden to debate him anywhere, anytime, then he's probably going to participate in those. But we also know that Donald Trump wants Joe Biden to debate him outside of those as well. The more, the merrier. So today, as Joe Biden was at a WNBA champions meeting. This was in Las Vegas. As he was passing by a group of the reporters in the White House pool, he was asked the question, "Will you debate Donald Trump?" He simply said, "Set it up," as he walked past the reporters. 2 weeks ago, Biden said that he would be happy to debate the GOP nominee. He said, this was on April 26th, "I am somewhere, I don't know when," the president said in an interview. This was with broadcaster Howard Stern. When Stern asked him about debating, he said, "I'm happy to debate him." Shortly after Biden's interview with Stern, Trump posted to his Truth Social account, inviting Biden to debate him at the courthouse in Lower Manhattan. Trump wrote on Truth, "In the alternative, he's in New York City today, although probably doesn't know it, and so am I, stuck in one of the many court cases that he has instigated as election interference against a political opponent, a continuing witch hunt." Trump said it's the only way he thinks he can win. "In fact, let's do the debate at the courthouse tonight on national television. I'll wait around." The former president also suggested that maybe the White House would be a good venue, saying that it would be very comfortable for the two of them to debate in the White House. He said, "We'll do it in the White House. That would be very comfortable. Actually, you tell me where, and I'm ready." Trump has repeatedly told reporters that he is ready, willing, and able to debate Joe Biden anywhere, anytime. He said, "We don't see him, and I don't think he'll be there. Maybe next week he'll do it," Trump told reporters at the Manhattan Criminal Court. "I doubt it, but maybe next week." Look, Joe Biden is not going to show up to debate Donald Trump until he absolutely has to. And then he may try to get out of then. Biden has not nailed down a debate date for Trump yet, saying last month that his participation would depend on the former president's behavior. Now, I'm not sure what that means. Does that mean if Donald Trump continues to act badly towards Joe Biden, that Joe Biden's going to say, well, he's behaving badly, so I'm not going to debate him? How does that work? Depends on his behavior. What does that mean? Meanwhile, Donald Trump wrapping up another week in a New York courtroom. Instead of being able to campaign, the issue of not being able to raise the money that the Democrats are raising is starting to worry some political insiders. And the Trump team is scrambling to put their fundraising back on track. Politico reported last night, as Donald Trump sat with some of the country's top oil executives at his Mara Lago club, the Washington Post reported that one executive complained about how they continued to face burdensome environmental regulations despite spending $400 million to lobby the Biden administration in the past year. Trump's response reportedly stunned some of the executives in the room. He said, "You all are very wealthy." He said, "You should raise $1 billion to return me to the White House." At the dinner, he vowed to immediately reverse dozens of President Biden's environmental rules and policies and stop new ones from being enacted, according to people with knowledge of the meeting, who spoke on condition of anonymity, of course, to describe what was a private conversation. Supposedly, Trump said giving $1 billion would be a deal because of the taxation and regulation they would avoid thanks to him, according to the people there. Trump's remarkably blunt and transactional pitch reveals, according to this news article from the Washington Post, how the former president is targeting the oil industry to finance his reelection bid. At the same time, he has turned to the industry to help shape his environmental agenda for a second term, including the rollbacks of some of Biden's signature achievements on clean energy and electric vehicles. In other presidential campaign news, before we leave this topic, looks like Donald Trump's not going to be able to count on Nikki Haley to get on board anytime soon. 2 months after ending her White House bid, Nikki Haley will huddle up next week with some of the top donors to her presidential campaign. The former South Carolina governor, former UN ambassador, will use a 2-day gathering next Monday and Tuesday in Charleston, South Carolina, to thank her large contributors. Now, a source in Haley's little circle down there in Charleston says that the former presidential candidate isn't expected to encourage donors to contribute to Trump's general election campaign, and that no endorsement of the GOP nominee is pending. This news was first reported yesterday by the Wall Street Journal. Haley launched her presidential campaign in February 2023, becoming the first major candidate to challenge Trump after, as you and I know, she had repeatedly told Trump she would not do. And she was the final rival, battling Trump in a 2-candidate showdown from New Hampshire in late January through Super Tuesday in early March before she threw in the towel. Haley announced she was suspending her White House campaign on March the 6th, the day after Trump swept 14 of the 15 GOP nominating contests on Super Tuesday. She said, "While I will no longer be a candidate, I will not stop using my voice for the things I believe in," emphasizing that she spoke at her presidential campaign headquarters on Daniel Island in her hometown, saying that she was going to continue to be involved. Again, to date, Haley has declined to endorse Trump. She said in March, as she pointed to those supported her during her White House run, "It is now up to Donald Trump to earn the votes of those in our party and beyond it who did not support him, and I hope that he does that." According to reports, Haley has not spoken to Trump since exiting the race. Some top members of her campaign, including some of the fundraising team, are expected to attend next week's meeting. Haley and groups aligned with her campaign brought in about $160 million from nearly 300,000 individual donors. It's no secret that Trump has some potential fundraising challenges, and he's got to be able to match Joe Biden dollar for dollar if he could as we head into the general election. Part of the problem, though, is, and what, there's been no reporting on, and it doesn't really matter, but Haley continues to be on the ballot in many of these primary states. For example, recently in Indiana, they voted last week. 22% of the vote Haley got. That concerns a lot of the donors who believe that since Trump is really the only active candidate out there, that he should be getting these votes as well. And if he's not, to them, that's a sign of problems. Last month, Haley joined the Washington, D.C.-based Hudson Institute, a research organization that's focused on foreign and domestic policy, national security, economics, and international relations. They were happy to get her. During her White House bid, Haley advocated for a rather robust foreign policy to deal with global hotspots such as the war between Russia and Ukraine and fighting between Israel and Hamas. Do you think Nikki Haley will ever endorse Donald Trump? Do you care if Nikki Haley endorses Donald Trump? Hope you'll join the conversation today. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Send your comments to the Furman Ford text line. You can leave a quick voice message, and your emails are always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Soon going to be 4 years ago that I started my journey with PhD weight loss and nutrition. I lost 30 pounds pretty quickly, I might add, and I've been able to maintain that for almost 4 years now. It'll be 4 years coming up in July. If this is the year that you have decided that you're going to get healthy, that you're going to lose that weight, that visceral fat that's so damaging around your waist, then now's the time to start. Let me encourage you to make that call today. 864-252-4925. Set up your initial consultation with PhD Weight Loss and Nutritionist. Boy, am I glad that I met Dr. Ashley Lucas 4 years ago and that she got me on the right path to getting healthy. You're going to be able to do things that you may have thought you'd never be able to do again. Play with the kids, the grandkids, be able to hike and walk and maybe play a full 18-round hole of golf and be able to do it and not get so winded. Because when you take that excess weight off, you're just going to feel better. You're going to be able to focus. You're going to be able to sleep better. Your overall health is just going to be improved. 864-252-4925. Call, set up your initial consultation. Find them online at myphdweightloss.com. PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition, the official partner of the Clemson Tigers. Looks like we're never going to be able to get Black Lives Matter out of our minds. The BLM group is suing a massive liberal foundation claiming egregious mismanagement of some $33 million in funds. Here's the story. A liberal foundation that controls about $1 billion in assets is facing accusations of mismanagement of funds from the largest Black Lives Matter group in the country. Now, we know that in the summer of George Floyd, people, for whatever reason, I'll never understand it, were flocking to Black Lives Matter to give their hard-earned money to this group of criminals. I mean, you had the head of the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation buying multiple homes, $1 million homes. They raised so much money so quickly, none of these people had ever experienced this type of money, and they didn't know how to manage it. They didn't know how to handle it. Evidently, they entered some type of management agreement with the Tides Foundation. This is a very liberal foundation, national foundation, and now they're saying that the Tides Foundation has mishandled the funds donated to the Black Lives Matter Support Fund, which the Tides Foundation is the administrator of. Tides, however, contests that this is by claiming that donations to the fund were actually intended for smaller BLM organizations like some of the community foundations and not the overall national group. Tides told the Daily Caller News Foundation, quote, resources in the Black Lives Matter Support Fund were never intended to be granted to large, well-funded national organizations like Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation, and were always intended to be granted to local Black Lives Matter chapters. The Tides Center, which is affiliated with the Tides Foundation, previously served as the fiscal sponsor of BLM GNF, allowing the BLM group to accept tax-exempt donations without registering with the Internal Revenue Service. These two groups ended their relationship in December of 2020 when questions started arising of just how Black Lives Matter their global network was spending the money. When we learned that this lady was buying these $1 million mansions and nice vehicles with money that was donated for the cause. BLM GNF told the Daily Caller News Foundation, while the Black Lives Matter Foundation seeks to recover its funds unjustly held by the Tides Foundation, our legal challenge extends beyond this specific issue. We aim to establish new rules for Tides and all fiscal sponsors who operate like unlicensed banks, handling huge donations in ways that blur the lines of legal and fiscal sponsorship without proper oversight. So they're suddenly concerned about oversight. This group who, look, it would probably scare you if we ever learned exactly how the millions that they've already spent was spent and what it was spent on. BLM GNF alleges that Tides entered an oral contract with it stipulating that money donated to the fund would eventually be transferred to them. The organization also accuses Tides of unjustly skimming money off of their donations by charging service fees. Well, hey, folks, that's how it's done. If you turn your money over to be managed to any foundation or to a financial institution, to a bank, they're going to charge you to manage it. That's how they make their money. Shame on you if you didn't figure that out before you handed over or allowed them to collect millions of dollars for you. According to this lawsuit, quote, Tides assesses fees under its agreements with these organizations, including charging a significant percentage of each contribution dedicated to BLM GNF. Yes, it does, kind of like PayPal. A lot of nonprofits use PayPal to collect their money online. PayPal deducts their percentage. That's why they're in business. Like a credit card company, charging you interest on money that you don't pay off at the end of each month. Now, Tides charges, according to the legal briefings, Tides charges exorbitant fees to black and brown nonprofits, according to the suit. So now we're going to play the race card. They're charging Black Lives Matter more because they have black skin. They're arguing that this is illegal because the fees equate to high interest rates fees similar to commercial bank fees. Tides is not organized for the purpose of engaging in the commercial banking business, they argue. The lawsuit also claims that this constitutes Tides financially benefiting at the expense of BLM, GNF, as well as the communities it serves. Tides said in a statement in response to this to the Daily Caller News Foundation, we're deeply disappointed that it has reached this stage and that the actions of BLM GNF leaders continue to prevent us from granting funds to black-led and black-serving organizations that need it. So basically, while this goes through court, those funds are frozen, and there are a lot of small organizations, minority organizations out there who were expecting and needing this money to operate, but because of the greedy National Foundation of Black Lives Matter, all of this is being held up. Nobody is benefiting from these millions and millions of dollars that the Tides organization is managing. Black Lives Matter has its own history of alleged financial mismanagement. Remember, the organization fell under scrutiny in 2022 when it used charitable funds to purchase the 6,500 square foot home for $6 million in Southern California. This is what I was referencing earlier. BLM was deeply involved in the racial justice movement, of course, that sprung up after the death of George Floyd. That's how they raised all these millions of dollars. After receiving a huge deluge of donations following Floyd's death, the organization spent or gave out millions of dollars in grants to aid local BLM chapters as it was intended and other racial justice activist groups. The Floyd riots caused over $1 billion in damages, resulting in between $1 billion and $2 billion in paid insurance claims, according to Axios. A total of 24 people died during the riots. So think about this. Black Lives Matter is sitting on millions and millions of dollars, yet because of protest that they encourage, protests that in some cases they actually planned, resulted in billions of dollars in property damage. Maybe some of these insurance companies should be suing Black Lives Matter to recover some of the claims that they had to pay because of the protests that they encouraged. What do you think? Love to get your comments. Hope you'll join the conversation today. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Send your comments to the Furman Ford text line. You can leave a quick voice message, and your emails are always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Whether you're replacing a broken appliance or maybe you're just upgrading, you're totally remodeling the kitchen, when it's time to get those new appliances, when you're ready for them, you don't want to have to wait weeks or even months to get started using them, right? Well, that's not the case when you shop with my friends at Discounted Appliance Warehouse. With over 11,000 square feet and 1,500 appliances at any given time, you can buy today and use today quite often. I'm talking about shopping with my friends at Discounted Appliance Warehouse in Pickens. It's worth the short drive over to Pickens. Jeff, Johnny, Kyle, the whole team over there, they'll take good care of you. They have an award-winning service department, expert installation, extended warranties, and at Discounted Appliance Warehouse, they treat you like family. You're more than just a credit card swipe to all the team over there. Discounted Appliance Warehouse, they're proud to offer Speed Queen, the only washer and dryers with manufacturer's warranties that cover parts and labor. You owe it to yourself if you're looking for a new appliance to head over to Pickens to Discounted Appliance Warehouse online at dawpickens.com, dawpickens.com. Glad to have you join me here. A Florida sheriff publicly released body cam footage. This is from a deputy who fatally shot a black airman in his home last week, and disputed claims from the victim's family that the deputy had gone to the wrong apartment. We learned more about this today as Oskaloosa County Sheriff Eric Alden showed the video during a news conference he held shortly after an attorney for the 23-year-old airman's family called for its public release, saying that the victim's girlfriend was FaceTiming with him and believes that the deputy went to the wrong apartment. The victim was identified by his family as Roger Fortson, an active duty senior airman, according to attorney Ben Crump, who has gotten involved in this. He held a news conference earlier on Thursday. Crump and Fortson's mother described him as a patriot who respected authority and had hoped to buy his mother and younger siblings a house someday. The sheriff, who met with the Fortson family shortly before the news conference was held, said that he had asked the Florida Department of Law Enforcement Division to handle the criminal investigation as is required in these types of cases where a officer shooting is involved. While that probe is ongoing, he said no determination has been made as to whether the deputy's actions were justified or not. The deputy has been placed on administrative leave. Sheriff Aiden said, "What we do know is that the deputy did announce himself not once but twice. Mr. Fortson's comments indicate that he did acknowledge it was law enforcement at the door, and he arrived at the door with a firearm in his hand." Now, how stupid was that? Now, I'm sorry this young man lost his life, and more on this in just a moment, but you have a deputy banging on your door, announcing himself being from the sheriff's office, and you go to the door with a firearm in your hand? The deputy knocked on the correct door, according to the report. He did not cover the peephole, as I guess has been suggested, because the young man claims he wasn't able to see anyone out there. That's why he went out to get his gun, or back in his apartment to get his gun. Fortson's family, though, reiterated their belief that authorities were at the wrong apartment. Fortson's family, in a statement following the release of the webcam footage, body cam footage, said, "We remain adamant that the police had the wrong apartment as Roger was on the phone with his girlfriend for a substantial amount of time leading up to the shooting, and no one else was in the apartment." So what does the body cam footage show? Deputies responded last Friday, this happened just last week, to an apartment after receiving a call for a disturbance in progress. The sheriff said, hearing sounds of a disturbance, a deputy reacted in self-defense after he encountered a 23-year-old man armed with a gun and after the deputy had identified himself as law enforcement. The sheriff said the deputy shot the man, who later succumbed to his injuries. The deputy involved in the shooting has not been identified yet by officials. The body cam footage is dated May the 3rd when this happened, begins at about 4:28 p.m., with the deputy arriving at what appears to be an apartment complex. Now, you can see a woman. I'm going to play this for you in a minute. You can see a woman at the complex, and she's heard telling the deputy there was a disturbance in the apartment at 1401. That's what she said, 1401, and that it was getting out of hand. The same woman tells the deputy that she previously walked by the apartment and heard yells and a slap, but added she wasn't sure where it came from. The deputy takes the elevator to the 4th floor, and again, you can see all this on the body cam, and knocks 3 times. Here's the footage.
Are they fighting or something?
He's saying that it happens frequently.
Okay.
But this time it sounded like it was getting out of hand.
Sheriff's office, open the door! Sheriff's office, open the door! Step out. Drop the gun! Drop the gun!
It's over there.
Drop the gun!
I don't have it.
312, shots fired. Suspect down. Do not move! 312, get EMS my location.
Now, you can see on this footage, the apartment number is 1401. It's very clear. Again, this young lady was saying that the noise was coming from 1401, so the deputy went up the elevator and went to apartment 1401. So he went to the apartment that had been complained about. He announces himself, as you heard, twice, saying, "Sheriff's office, open the door." There's nothing heard on the footage from inside of the apartment. Within seconds of the apartment's door opening, the deputy says, "Step back," and is seen almost immediately firing his weapon. Fortson is seen standing at the door with his hands down and what appears to be a lowered firearm in his right hand. He immediately falls to the floor as the deputy fires. At least 5 shots are heard. While Fortson's on the floor, you hear the deputy saying, "Drop the gun." Now, honestly, after when you see the video and you see this young man being shot, I don't think there's any danger of him not dropping the gun. I don't know how he was able to even talk. I'm not sure why he wasn't killed immediately. Fortson is heard saying, "It's over there. I don't have it," talking about the gun, that he did not have the gun in his hand as the deputy is telling him to drop it. Then you see the deputy continue to point his weapon at Fortson and tells him not to move while Fortson remains on the floor. The deputy continues pointing his weapon at Fortson as he's calling for an EMS unit. You hear deputies communicating with dispatch that Fortson has been shot. They say 6 times with multiple gunshot wounds to the chest with 1 exit wound, according to police dispatch calls that a CNN affiliate released there locally. Fortson's family, look, this is a sad situation. No doubt about it. This young man, he may have been, as his mom describes him, he may have, he was an member of our armed services. But again, he went to the door after hearing this person. He had to have heard, I would imagine, that this was a sheriff's deputy, and he went to the door with a gun in his hand. So Fortson's family said it's very troubling that the deputy gave no verbal commands and shot multiple times within a split second of the door being opened, killing Roger. And the key to that is, yes, it happened in a split second. And that's how, in a split second, a deputy can lose his or her life, too. No verbal commands, the family is saying. How could he have not heard the banging on the door, sheriff's office, twice? I mean, what commands should he have given? Again, this was a split-second decision. It could have gone the other way had this deputy not taken the action he did. He could have lost his life, and that's how quite often deputies do lose their lives, because they hesitate. The statement said, as the officer didn't tell Roger to drop the weapon before shooting, was the officer trained to give verbal warnings? Did the officer try to initiate life-saving measures? Was the officer trained to deal with law-abiding citizens who are registered gun owners? Later yesterday, lawyer Crump also released nearly 4 minutes of the FaceTime call that he says Fortson was having with his girlfriend when he was shot. The video shows what appears to be the ceiling of the apartment as a man, presumably Fortson, can be heard groaning and saying, "I can't breathe." Another man, presumably the deputy, tells him, "Do not move, stop moving." I assume the deputy is afraid that he will somehow get the gun that he had in his hand earlier and return fire. The deputy can then be heard saying, "Hang on, man, we've got an ambulance coming for you. Don't move." Presumably speaking to others, the deputy then says, "We're good. He had a gun since he opened the door." Another person can later be heard detailing Fortson's wounds, saying, "We've got 3 gunshot wounds, 1 exit," before one says, "Yeah, he's shot up." Eventually someone is heard saying Fortson has 6 gunshot wounds. He was later pronounced dead at the hospital. In their earlier news conference with the family, Crump and Fortson's mother described him as a responsible young man and a patriot who had long dreamed of serving in the U.S. Air Force.
Roger Fortson was the best America had to offer.
Civil rights attorney Ben Crump says everyone should be outraged at this story. 23-year-old Roger Fortson, who is black, was sitting in his apartment last week when he heard a knock at the door, according to his family. He went to the door but couldn't see anyone through the peephole. He got scared, according to his family, and went and got his legally owned firearm, at which point, according to his family, deputies with the Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office went into his apartment complex, into his own apartment, and opened fire, shooting him 6 times. Now, the Sheriff's Office did release a statement saying that the deputies were acting in self-defense, but the family is now drawing that narrative into question, saying that Fortson was on a FaceTime call with his girlfriend, who alleges there was no disturbance whatsoever, and the deputies just opened fire without giving Fortson a chance. Now, the press conference earlier was a very emotional one from the family, in which his mother said that the police who shot him killed a man who was a patriot and a good guy.
My child taught us how to love, how to forgive. So to this sheriff department that took my gift, that had so many accolades inside of him, to err is human and to forgive is divine. I need you guys to tell the truth about my son. I need you to get his reputation right.
Yes.
The family says Fortson was home for just 30 minutes before that shooting happened. They're calling on the sheriff's office to release the body cam footage of the incident and for the police to clear their son's name.
There's still a lot of details yet to be found. Many are already comparing this to previous shootings in recent years in which a black man or woman was killed by law enforcement. Did they get this one right? Should this police officer be held responsible for this? Or is this simply a case of where a young man made a bad decision by going to the door with a gun in his hand? Hope you'll join the conversation today. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Send your comments to the Furman Ford text line. You can leave a quick voice message, and your emails are always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. A lot of text messages to cover today. Tony writes on the text line, Joey, Marjorie Taylor Greene is right, but Alstine Johnson now is political suicide. She's going to give the seat to Hakeem Jeffries. Fred writes, totally agree with Donald Trump on the Speaker of the House issue. Marjorie Taylor Greene is a good representative. However, I believe she appears trivial and antagonistic for the sake of being antagonistic. When one considers that Nancy Pelosi held that position with zero threats for years, but the GOP cannot keep that position for more than a year or so without a removal threat, the GOP gives the impression they're disorganized. The Democrats love that the GOP commits hara-kiri when they conduct themselves in this manner. Appreciate your comment there, Fred. Faye writes, the 2020 election was about as legal as fentanyl. I am sick of squeaky Biden lying. He better be getting his soul right and admit he sold our country down the river. My opinion is his heaven will only be on earth. Americans must vote like never before, or we lose our republic. Thank you, Faye. Ace writes, Denver is catering to these illegals. If you give them an inch, they'll take the country. I agree with Green. One small left lean is enough to tip the scale. We can't give the left anything, Ace writes. There's no good left. All of the leftists are the destruction of the U.S. Constitution. Anyone claiming to be a Republican, in quotation marks, but yet agree with the left are greasy. We need people like Ms. Green because she stands firmly in what's right. Giving the left an inch is why we're in this crazy mess. You know, it's been interesting to read some of your text messages because it's been about half each way. Some of you believe that Marjorie Taylor Greene was right in this week putting forth an effort to vacate the seat of the speakership. Others are saying, no, big mistake. We can't come across as wanting to vacate the speaker now because it's just like we're a bunch of infighting. There's got to be some common ground in there somewhere, I would think. Susan writes, Biden is refusing to send Israel satellite-controlled bombs that would make them more accurate and cut down on civilian casualties. Mike Johnson should tell him that Ukraine doesn't get one red cent as long as he continues withholding the weapons from Israel. We'll see. I'm still not convinced that Joe Biden can legally do this, that he can legally withhold the weapons that Congress has already approved and we've already obligated to our good allies, Israel. Appreciate all your text messages. You can also email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. First, it was student loans. Now Bernie Sanders wants to pass new legislation that would cancel Americans' medical debt. According to the report, consumers owe billions, with many of them expressing no hope of ever paying it off. Should this be forgiven too? Just like the Biden administration wants to forgive student loans? I mean, when are we going to start forgiving mortgage loans? When are we going to start just giving away cars? Just cancel your auto loan. So here's what The Hill is written about. In this article, they say studies have shown that millions of Americans owe a combined $220 billion in medical debt, with 1 in 5 adults saying they don't expect to ever be able to pay off the bills. A group of congressional Democrats are proposing knocking that amount down to zero. People in our country should not be going bankrupt because they have cancer and could not afford to pay their medical bill, Senator Bernie Sanders said in his statement. The legislation would remove the debt from credit reports and severely limit future debt from accruing. The legislation would also cancel existing debt through a new federal grant program. This is per an article in The Guardian. It would alter the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act to keep creditors from collecting old medical bills and change the Consumer Credit Reporting Act to prohibit credit agencies from reporting information about those unpaid health care bills. Representative Ro Khanna, one of the co-sponsors, talked about the stress the debt causes, saying, I've met people who say they're just resigned to having this debt ruin their credit and they don't pay it, but they have this kind of harassment and anxiety while they're dealing with a chronic condition like cancer or diabetes. Look, if we would get back to what the Republicans have attempted to do while Joe Biden has been in office, and that's rehabilitate Obamacare and come up with a health care system that will take care of Americans so that they don't have this debt, all this goes away. Somebody has to pay this, just like the student loans. And you've heard me talking about student loans before. When they talk about forgiving student loan debt, it just sends my blood boiling because it's like nobody has personal responsibility. Now, I get it. People get sick. Sometimes people get sick and They don't have health insurance. That's why we've got to overhaul the health insurance so that people have accessible health, affordable health insurance so they can get the care they need. I don't want anybody having to go to the hospital or not go to the hospital because they fear not being able to pay for it. That shouldn't happen in America. But we also have to, we have the best healthcare system in the world. And the reason we do is because healthcare makes money. Hospitals make money. Yes, I know. Our big healthcare provider here in the upstate, Prisma Health, the largest in the state, it's ironic that they are a, quote, nonprofit. They're one of the biggest employers, if not the biggest employer in the upstate, and they make a boatload of money, even though they are a nonprofit. You got executives down there making a lot of money. Maybe that's something else we need to be looking at, reducing the cost of health care so that people can afford it. But to just send the message that, hey, you run up a health care bill, don't worry because Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden, they're going to forgive it, just like the student loans. Sends a message to students, well, borrow as much as you can, stay in school as long as you can because eventually they'll forgive it. You won't have to pay it. So don't worry about it. No sweat. I mean, banks would go out of business if they operated like that, if they had people who were coming to them wanting mortgage loans, wanting to finance automobiles, wanting to finance boats and businesses with the expectation that they really didn't have to pay it back. If they just got into a bind and decided, well, I don't want to pay this anymore, then they don't have to. Our system just doesn't work like that. According to analysis by KFF Health News, found that people with disabilities were more than twice as likely to be in medical debt than those without a disability. Well, that kind of makes sense. If you have a disability, you probably are going to the doctor's office and having to have care much more frequently than someone who is totally healthy. But the reason they tell you this is because they believe that the burden of medical debt is not evenly distributed. And you know there's a racial component to this, right? You know that they're going to throw the race card in here because they say also that in addition, 13% of black Americans have medical debt compared to 7% of white adults and 8% of Hispanic adults. You knew that was coming, didn't you? Ensuring that people are not plunged into debt because they saw a doctor or went to an emergency room is kind of human decency, Representative Connor said. I can't argue with the fact that if people need health care, they should be able to get health care. We just got to figure out who pays for it and how they pay for it. And I can't believe that hospitals are out there targeting black Americans and running their debt up more. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined our mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Just click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, find me on YouTube. Be sure and like, subscribe, follow me on my YouTube channel. Just search for Joey Hudson. Appreciate you spending a few minutes of your day with me. Be sure and forward this edition of Just the Truth to some friends. Just click on the share button. Send it to a few of your contacts because if we're going to build our community and we're going to win in the June primaries, and if we're going to win in November especially, we got to build an army of conservatives. The way we beat Joe Biden is through educating people, and no better way than encouraging them to listen to Just the Truth. Hey, keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Your emails always welcome as well. Joey@joeyhudson.com. We're back again tomorrow. Hope you will be too. Remember, God's got this. He's still in control.